Hello. Today I'm going to react to a conference. It was held in Budapest, Hungary, and about the third millennium BC in Europe, especially about the Yamnaya and the steppe people and their DNA and the past, etc. So first I'd like to tell you about what I remember first, and then I'm not sure if I'm going to include my own ideas first, or if I do that at the very end. But I think I will tell you about first the topic, and I will remember what I thought about it, and then I will continue like this. So first of all, the Caucasus. So when we talk about the steppe, we think about the Pontic steppe. And what I learned from the Hungarian conferences, so many things. I actually thought that when the people, the Indo-Europeanists, when they first started talking about their theory, that it would put a distance to the past of Turkish DNA, Turkic DNA, but vice versa. I will tell you why. There are some question marks in my mind, which I'm going to ask you, which I'm going to tell you, and then I will share my comments. I'm not sure how long this is going to be, but I will tell it. I will put it in parts, most probably. And of course, I will add some things. So first, now the most astonishing thing was about graves. Some of them were kurgans. Let me say kurgan because it is actually a Turkish word. Not sure if I'm able to put this in the right position. I hope. So I will try to. Yes. So this actually shows some of the kurgans. So this was one of the speakers, and they were positioned in either legs like an embryo. And I remember about the kurgans, they said 80% of the legs were positioned left and 20% were positioned to the right. So this is actually the Yamnaya theory, which they put forward. And there were some mass graves here, which were found in Thrace. So I'd like to tell you about this burial style. This burial style is a Yamna grave. It's a kurgan where the body was positioned like this, the arms straight and the knees to the left, 80% of the knees to the left. And grave goods given here like metal rings, etc. So this is, of course, very typical for a kurgan. And later I will tell you something that will show you how close the kurgan culture is to the Turkish culture. But wait, so this is actually a typical style of a kurgan chamber. So it can be either round or oval or rectangular. It has straight walls. It has a flat bottom with mats. It has wooden coverings, which we can also see in Kazakhstan, in the Kazakhstan kurgans. We have a supine position, legs bent and the knees pointing upwards, the arms straight and placed along the body. So this is what we do in Turkish burials as well. The body is straight. And what I would like to add here is the presence of ochre and the red colored skulls. Now, pay attention to the last two parts where there is a presence of ochre and where there are red colored skulls. This was not present before the Yamnaya came into Europe. You see the skull here. It is red painted. I'd like to emphasize that this culture, this burial culture, is still practiced in Turkey. We do have henna, we call it kına, which is given, which is added to the neck when there is a dying person in the grave, to the grave we add to the dead body's neck a kind of, let's say, in a little cloth package, we put some henna and some herbs are added to they are sprinkled all over the body. So this lecturer who gave the speech, he also talked about that, and I was so astonished about this. I was so surprised, because he was actually talking about the burials that are still practiced in Turkey. So this is for one thing. And you see here the red skulls, right? And it is all the same in Turkey. Now pay attention to where it was found. Eastern Hungary, around 4000 BC. Dobruja, about 4000 BC. 3000, 4000, the arrival of the Yamnaya into Europe, into Eastern Europe, especially Hungary. So this is not a coincidence, I would say, that it has a very rich similarity to Turkey and the Turkish burials still being practiced. Another thing is about the burials again. So the Yamnaya burials in the Prahova area, some of them, some of the legs are like this, and some legs are cross-legged, like a frog. So this was interesting to see. And another thing which I would like to tell you is the period before the Yamnaya graves and the period after the Yamnaya graves, and the difference here. So we see, for example, the sex of the dead, both males and females. The sex of the dead was only males in the Yamnaya period. And the orientation was variable before the Yamnaya period, and after the Yamnaya arrived to the area, the orientation was west to east of the body. Ochre was rarely present before the Yamnaya period, and after the Yamnaya period, ochre was present in lumps, and it was sprinkled over the bones, especially the skull. So this is still practiced in Turkey. I remember it from my mom. My mom was buried like this. She had a certain kuna, we call it henna, we call it kuna, a certain kind of henna, which is most probably the continuation of the red ochre. And it was put on her neck. So that this has something to do with her head. And I remember some other things put to her head, and also the sprinkling herbs all over her body. So this is an ancient tradition of the Turks, I would say, an ancient tradition of the proto Turks, which took this tradition for thousands of years. And we have something in common with the steppe people, which came to Eastern Europe, because this practice can be seen all over the geography where it was spread from the Caucasus. We can see it in the Caucasus, in the around the Black Sea region. So all in the borders of the Black Sea region. That means Romania, Hungary, the Balkans, and the areas like that. So we have this, we still keep this ancient tradition. Another thing that was very astonishing was the name Arzen. So Arzen reminds me of Arshan, the Arzan Kurgans of the Scythians, the oldest Scythian Kurgans. I think it is situated in the Altais, but it is called Arshan, and this is called Arzen. So I wanted to emphasize this. So this is all in Hungary. You see the mounds here. We call them hüyüks in Turkish, and there are loads of hüyüks in Turkey as well. But of course, they wait to be excavated. So we have here Andras Yossa, the first scientific kurgan excavator. So I'm sure Hungary has a more ancient past with us, even before 3000, 4000 BC. That's what I think. We have a common rooted culture with the Hungarians, which stem from the Urals, the Ural Mountains, the Ural area. So this is actually the area of the root. And you see here the Altai Mountains, Siberia here, Lake Baikal. So here there was the common route of the steppe herders, which came from the east into the west. Yes, There were also found round kurgans, circular kurgans. So this is a Baden culture, and these are prehistoric kurgans. So one body was with a skull fracture, and his forehead was painted with ochre. You see, these are all the pre-Yamnaya burials, and how tall they are. I loved this reconstruction, actually. It was very, very beautiful. I think it was made very, very effectively, very beautifully. I would say the reconstruction on the left would be more European type or more Russian type, whereas the reconstruction on the right, on the upper right and down, looks very much Turkish. That means Siberian Turkish. Yes, I loved this person presenting his topic about, you see here, these are the ancient burial, let's say, practices and the ancient spiritual beliefs of the old Ural culture. Here you see it. So this man, this presenter, talked about the ancient tradition which was practiced on the hills, up the mountains, and these were kurgans like this. And in the past, ancient Hungarians would go up the mountain, bury their dead on the mountain, and make a kurgan like this. And even they had certain, I don't know what you call this, but they put stones like this to mark the spirituality of the burial. And later, from this hill or from this mountain top, they went down to the ground. So this reminded me of the Eastern Siberian people. It reminded me of the Eastern Asians who went to the Americas, the Native Americans, who made similar practices like this. So we have a common culture with the Hungarians, most probably, I think, around 3000, 4000, and before that area, before that era, ancient kurgans, ancient graves were erected like this on the hills, and later they became practices on the ground. So this again shows that this kind of practice stems from the Urals. It comes from the Urals. It doesn't come from Europe. It is not Europe. It is not an Indo-European effect that we see here. This is a Siberian tradition. This is an ancient Uralic tradition, and it has something to do with the Siberian culture. Another thing which was very, very interesting was this woman's talk. She talked about the climate change and the climate in 3000 BC and how the people actually dressed. So here we see up here the head, the head, and here we call this in Turkish keçe. So it is made of goat leather. So keçe is very common. And the fur hats, they were common in ancient Turks as well. I'm not going much into this presentation. The only thing that I would like to say is that there was a certain force which was caused by the climate. The climate started to get colder in the south and in Siberia. So people started to move towards the north and the west. So that's why they most probably migrated, this lady said. Now here I'd like to show you the core Yamnaya and where they come from. So the core Yamnaya is here, where we see Samara Yamnaya, where we have the Khvalynsk culture and the Ural Yamnaya. So it is actually in the Urals, right? So the Samara Yamnaya are the core Yamnaya. So actually it is in the Urals that this culture spread, that the people came towards Europe. And here we see when the Yamnaya arrived in Eastern Europe, they went here to this part of Hungary. So, and here, yes, there are the excavated sites of the Yamna Kurgans. So, like this. So, as far as I know, I've heard that there are thousands of kurgans in Hungary. So, I definitely think that the main, it was actually the homeland of the Proto-Scythians, which was very much affected by the Urals. So, it is actually a Uralic Siberian effect that is seen in Hungary. But Hungary, as you know, has nothing to do with the Indo-Europeans, and it is an agglutinative language. It has to do with the Uralic languages, and I also think it was very much affected by its neighboring communities, like I mean in the Urals, before it came to form the Proto-Scythian part in Hungary, that it carried very much of the tradition from the Urals and the Samara culture, the Siberian culture, and even the Altai culture, where they most probably contacted with all the Siberian tribes, including the Central Asian and Eastern Asian tribes, which were which spoke a kind of Proto-Uralic, Proto-Turkic, and maybe to some extent some Proto-Russian kind of language. So it was a kind of mixture of these words and phrases which formed an agglutinative language. So this actually was the roots of the agglutinative languages, and the oldest before it split into, most probably, before it split to Proto-Turkish, Proto-Hungarian, and somewhere it even formed the Proto-Indo-European languages, which I will come to later. I even think maybe that the Russian part here was the proto part of the Indo-European languages, which might be possible. And what I noticed, I think I told it before, that the kurgans which were excavated, they were mainly in the areas of Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, parts of the Ukraine, parts of Poland, but mostly these three parts. And of course, a certain part of the Caucasus was also affected by it. But they don't show the Caucasus part here. Here actually, when mentioning Caucasus, here actually is the part where we see the early farmers, the Anatolian Neolithic farmers. And here we have the Caucasus. There is a certain connection from the Caucasus to the Yamnaya. We have the corded ware culture, which was also under the effect of the Caucasus gene before. So we have here Central Europe, etc. So if we have a look at the genes, we can see here the Yamnaya. Ukraine Yamnaya, etc., and Hungary Yamnaya, and Baden, etc. So mostly there was a gene flow from the Caucasus, and even some Anatolian part of ancestry. Of course, the Yamnaya had 80% of steppe ancestry. And here we see again the Yamnaya Samara component in their genes. We have the hunter-gatherers, and we have the early Neolithic. The early Neolithic was generally from Anatolia. The hunter-gatherer part was from, as far as I know, it was from the Caucasus, mostly. So here we see that this individual, for example, has so much of a gene. It is almost 80% steppe ancestry. And here again, we have 80% steppe ancestry. The green one is the Neolithic farmers from Anatolia. And the gray part is the hunter-gatherers from the Caucasus. So it is almost equal, the Caucasus part and the Anatolian part. And the rest is steppe ancestry. Actually, let me put it this way. When we say steppe ancestry, I mean the Yamnaya core part, the Yamnaya Samara part. Here we see actually very strong, very much of the ancient Turkish culture spreading from Samara. Because in Russia, there is a mixture of Turkish tradition, an ancient Turkish tradition, and an ancient Russian tradition, which has a mixture. Actually, by Turkish, I mean Tatar. So they formed the early traditions of a Turkish tradition in Samara, together with the Russian culture. And from there it spread to the steppe towards Europe. That's my opinion. I will tell you later in the language that I think it affected. And it's always the same rituals, the same grave traditions. Right, we see here, for example, a small handled jug on the chest, and then people gave obsidian blades to the grave, and also sitting positions, etc. So here we have the genetic ancestry. Also, we have here Baden types, I think, which is also from the Anatolian Neolithic farmers, I think, this Baden type. And we have mixed ancestry and Yamnaya Samara ancestry. So this is also in Hungary. Another thing which was interesting for me was the haplogroups. So we have here the affinity of the Carpathian Basin Yamnaya associated individuals to the Samara Yamnaya group. So when we look at the phenotypes, they had H2, U5A1, U2E, V7 mitochondrial DNA, and their haplogroups was R1b, 1a, 1b, 1b, and the Y haplogroups so were like this. Right. Here we see the interaction of the early farmers and the Yamnaya. So this is actually a test of the Yamnaya culture and East Slovakian Neolithic mound. So even we saw these kurgans in East Slovakia. Now, when we have the Anatolian Neolithic components and the Samara Yamnaya components, we see that there is so much mixture of the Yamnaya Samara admixture with the Anatolian Neolithic and the Mesolithic iron gates. So this is so proud to hear that Samara culture was actually a proto-culture of Hungary and of Eastern Europe, because it brings the Turkish culture and the Hungarian culture even closer. It brings the Eastern European culture closer to the Turkish culture, because I think we have had more in common in the ancient past now. I always thought the connection started around a short time after AD. But I see now that it was before the Scythians. It was even before the Proto-Scythians that most probably these two cultures came into contact before 3000, 4000, even 5000 BC. And I'm sure that these people were not speaking an Indo-European language or a Proto-Indo-European language. I will explain you later, as I said. Now, this was something that made me so proud. I will just look if I have the clearer version of this. We can't see it, but what I can tell you is that the lady mentioned here, this is the part where the kurgans were found in Hungary, and the roots of this Yamnaya group from Samara culture, they go back, of course, these are the grandchildren wait a minute, I think it was vice versa. No. I'm going to tell you. So these are the connections, the relativeness, the relativity. So the bonds of the Yamnaya with the culture that it had contact with, and even relatives and relations go until here. So this means it had relations in Samara. So this is the Samara band. It has relations, so a very small part of, I think this is Baltic, a very small part with Germany and Central Europe. And then we have here mostly this part of, I think it's the Balkans, right? It's what is this part? I don't know, but it is related with this Black Sea region here, right? So it is very close to the, I think it is Moldova or some part like that, maybe Ukraine. And here we have also, I think this is also the Samara part, and maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe Ukraine or but here you see it goes back, it goes further to the Altai. You see here, this is the Altai, East Asia, Central Asia, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Central Asia, right? So here we have the connections of the Yamnaya. So how can you claim that this is a Indo-European speaking community when it is clearly seen that it is mostly Uralic and Altaic regions that have to do with, so it is actually Siberian, what you call here. So the language must have been something aggluninative. So it is most probably that these people were speaking a language close to Hungarian, close to Turkish, and a mixture between the two. And here it says it had connections with the Carpathian Basin, the Afanasyevo culture, the Yamnaya in Samara, and the Volga areas. So all the steppe, actually. And here they looked at the genetics of these individuals, where the genetic components were like, here it says, most of them were the Yamnaya components. They were from Chelyabinsk, Samara, Altai, Moldova, Yamnaya. And Mr. Anthony, he was surprised that the Yamnaya had a component from the Altai already, and the woman, she didn't oppose to this. She said, she admitted that there was an Altai component from the east. I think it was also a man that claimed this, that there were genetic components from the Altais from the east to the steppe Yamnaya and to the Samara region, where the stem Yamnaya come from. And here are some haplogroups that were found in the Carpathian Basin. So Y DNA was RL151, and the other was R1b type. And some of them were Yamnaya type ancestry. And here we have the haplogroups. Very interesting. I'm going to read them to you. So here we have H, C1a, which was also a haplogroup found in Çatalhöyük. And I think H was also found in Çatalhöyük. CT, E1b. So E1b is actually, I think it's mostly found in Greeks and Arabs. We have haplogroup F. We have G2, which is a Caucasian and Turkish haplogroup, mostly. G2A, H2I. So I think is a native haplogroup. I2, I2A, I2A2, J2A, J2B, K2, Q1A. So Q1, I think, is a Central Asian haplogroup. R1, R1A, R1B. So they claim that there was no haplogroup of R1A within these individuals. But here we see that we can find R1A. So we mostly have R1B here. And what I want to tell you is that some of the presenters, they focused on the homogenization only later, generations later. So in the very beginning, when the Yamnaya arrived to these regions in Eastern Europe mostly, and when they arrived in Europe, most Yamna groups were excluded from the community. They didn't want to be accepted. So the Yamnaya married among themselves. They couldn't actually enter the communities, and they had to form their own communities because they were excluded from the other parts of Europe. So that's why they spread, especially in the areas of Eastern Europe, especially around the regions of the Balkans, the Romania, Hungary, etc. Another thing that I want to tell you, which is about the homogenization, is that Europe in 3000, 4000, maybe even earlier BC, they didn't want to welcome the newcomers. So they excluded the new coming individuals. They saw them as foreigners and they discriminated them. So for centuries even, they didn't have marriages with them, and so actually I think also some crime was going on, and certain burials and certain strict and criminal cases were seen. So that actually makes me think of today. Today, actually, not much has changed. When you think of Central Europe and Western Europe, and the attitude towards Eastern Europe, especially, it has actually not much changed, because most of Eastern Europe suffers. It suffers more from poverty than the West does, or than Central Europe does. And actually, still, Central Europe and Western Europe, they do not welcome the welcomers very much. They have their own rules, they have their strict rules, and actually what it makes me think of is that some communities, or some parts, some regions, some geographical regions never change, and the characters of these regions never change. So it's always the same. If you consider, for example, Turkey, or the place Anatolia, people have always been welcoming to new cultures, and even it came to the extent to have the danger of being assimilated into the new cultures. And Anatolia has always been a threat. I mean, it has always had this threat from the newcoming societies, or the newcoming cultures, that it mostly had to defend its own lands, rather than putting rules to the new groups that came in. So also, there are some communities which have an exploiting character, while others don't. Another thing is that we have here some sites. So this is most probably a German book. And here there were mostly kurgans found. This area. And what I want to tell you is that not only in Hungary kurgans were found, also in, I think it was Austria, Neusiedl. I'm not sure if it was Austria. It also can be Böhmen, the area to the border of Hungary. So even kurgans were found there. So this was actually very interesting. Wait a minute, I made a mistake. So here, when you have a look at the cross symbol here, it is actually a very ancient symbol of the Turks as well. So most probably this was a common symbol of the ancient communities. And this was 2800 BC, Budapest again. I most probably took this picture because of the words here, like Mako, Chaka, because Mako, Chaka, they sound very much American Indian, ancient Turkic words. So most probably Hungary was one of the, Proto-Hungary was one of the communities that was very much affected by the Ural area as well as the Siberian area, together with the ancient, very much long ago, 10,000s or maybe 20,000s of years back, of Asian culture. And what I mean here is Central Asian, Eastern Asian, even the Caucasus, and communities interchanged, cultures here, the Urals especially, and the area where now Russia is. So all Siberia, even maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe from, but anyway, I won't include South Asia and West Asia, because it is a bit too far away from there. And you see the genetic components here. Here we have 4 admixtures. The red one is the pastoralist admixture. Here the green one is what is the green one? The EEF. What was EEF? I forgot. I'm so sorry, I forgot. The early, what was EEF? The early Eastern farmers? No. Anyway, so here the woman talks about this admixture here in Hungary, which was found in these burials. Yes, I think this was the bell beaker culture. It has nothing to do with the steppe. But here we still see a steppe component in the bell beaker culture. Right, so I think it was Caucasian steppe, a little bit of steppe, the early hunter-gatherer and the Western hunter-gatherer, I think. I won't actually talk about the bell beaker and the corded ware culture too much. I will only make some generalizations. I only know that in the bell beaker culture there was some items given to the grave, like for example pottery, etc. So they were placed like this beside her. And here we have the components again, the components in the bell beaker culture. We have steppe ancestry, but very interestingly, some graves had none, some graves had little steppe ancestry, and one grave had 58.9% steppe ancestry. So this is a huge amount. So there were actually 3 components of genes. One of them was also Anatolian Neolithic. Here we have, for example, in the first period, in the Baden period, we have mostly Anatolian Neolithic, and then it decreases. It mainly decreases. And we have Western hunter-gatherers, which is not a very huge amount. So mainly we have Anatolian Neolithic and Steppe Yamnaya. So this gentleman mainly talked about the effect that the Yamnaya had on the cultures of Europe. Now, I told you before that mainly Hungary, Romania, the Balkans, they had a cultural effect that was going through, yeah, the culture, or the people were going through a cultural event, like, for example, it came from the East, and people were introduced to a new culture, and they thrived. And with this thrive, the rest of Europe also had its share. That means that France thrived, and that Central Europe thrived because of the steppe people. I don't want to say actually Yamna, because I know this term is misused, it is wrongly used, and I don't want to actually use the term Indo-European, because I'm quite sure that they adapted the Indo-European language later. They first were, in my opinion, they were steppe people. They had admixtures of the Urals, Central Asia, Siberia, and they had a mixture of Turkic, Tatar, Russian, mainly Siberian, Uralic people, where actually today's Turks thrived. So these people were introduced from the Urals to Hungary, and from Hungary, mainly these Uralic cultures, they spread to the rest of Europe. So actually, Hungary was the center of cultures, as it was also many times in the past. What considers cultures, what considers music, everything. And it even affected the shape of the pottery. So the potteries became richer and finer, etc. So it affected definitely the way of life, and it shaped the communities. These new cultures shaped the communities. And even there was a woman at the very end of the conference who said that, was it a man? I'm not sure. That the Yamnaya, or the steppe people, they were the first people who came from the steppe. That's what I want to call them. They were peace-loving kind of communities, like the hippies. That was very fun. Here we again see the socio-environmental transformation that was actually starting from Hungary, and it took over to the rest of Europe. Here, in this graph, we see the hybridization. So it shows actually the regions. We have the Alps, we have Austria, and we have the Circumharz region. So here we see that the lowest admixture, or the lowest hybridization, was actually in the Alpine foreland. And in the Czech Republic, it was, we see here, there was a peak here. And even in the Circumharz region, it was the same. So here we had the most hybridization from 4,400 or 4,300 BC. So actually, here when the Yamnaya arrived, we didn't have much hybridization because the communities were actually excluded from the locals. Just as an info, we see here the places of the corded ware, the bell beakers, and the Yamnaya. So actually, even some presenters were not actually very sure what corded ware was and what bell beaker was called. Actually, it is okay, it is a pottery process which is given to as grave goods. We see that, but mostly these cultures, they were also affected by the incoming cultures from Anatolia, from the Caucasus, and even from the steppe. So actually this was very interesting. In, I think, the corded ware culture, is this the corded ware culture? Yes. So the burial directions is shown here. Some of them are facing south, some of them are facing west, some of them are facing northwest, but none of them is facing the east. That's what I noticed here. That's what I wanted to share here. I found very interesting. Another thing that I would like to share you is that the Yamnaya had some genetic ancestry with the Afanasyevo culture, which you see here. It is further east, mostly connected to the Urals and the Altais, so the steppe region. Here in this picture we see the Yamnaya related clusters here. If you look here, these are the Yamnaya related clusters. So we see them here actually, mostly in Northern Europe. And when we compare Yamnaya to the corded ware, we see that in the dark green spots, the corded ware is mainly in Northern Europe. It is further to the north, Sweden, Denmark, the Baltics, parts of Russia, Germany, Central Europe. So that was actually the corded ware culture. So these two cultures, they are actually still valid today. The corded ware culture was harsher. I remember a woman talking about a presentation where there were some cases of crime and still these central, let's say these Central European and Northern European parts, they discriminated, or they separated actually the eastern part of Europe because of the steppe related ancestry. So actually this separation, this discrimination goes on until today. So they still, I think, cannot get the fact that actually this happened, and they are still seen as the newcomers, the incomers into the land, the ones that came later, and still you make actually history repeat itself with the harsh discrimination of the people there, and even the regime, it reflects the cultures in the regime. And this is a very, very beautiful graph, completed, because it also shows the bell beaker culture. So the bell beaker culture was more England, France, parts of France, and parts in Germany. Yes, yes. Wait a minute, and it says here, this is the area where major steppe-related ancestry clusters. So these are the clusters where these communities had steppe-related ancestry. They were present in all of them, actually. Wow, that's great. That's great. Let's zoom in. Here you have the Yamnaya, right? So you see the Yamnaya here in Eastern Europe, Hungary mainly. You see the steppe-related ancestry in the Kordadware, east and west. Sorry, east and north. And you see the steppe-related ancestry in the bell beaker culture. So it comprises England and parts of France and parts of Central Europe. Actually, I'm not going into the genetics, but it says here these were the European farmers. I mean, the ochre ones, they were the European farmers. The green is the Kordadware. The bluish is the bell beaker. And here we have the Bohemia example. You know, Bohemia is actually very close to the border to Hungary. I think it's in Austria. And here you see actually the DNA of, you see here how much steppe DNA Burman has. And Neolithic farmer is here the brown one. So they have also Neolithic farmer ancestry. Johannes Krause, he said that around 10,000, 8,000 BC, people from Çatalhöyük, people from Anatolia, the Neolithic farmers, they went into Europe. So this must be the part where they went to Europe. And here we have other DNAs. I mean, we have Anatolian farmers again. We have the hunter-gatherer West Baltic and the steppe. You see, the steppe is so much. I mean, a major influence. You see, it is huge. It is huge. There was actually someone on Twitter who said, he criticized actually David Anthony and said the main area where Proto-Indo-European was spoken was in Mentish Tepe, so very close to Shomu Tepe, Sholu, very, I think this is in Azerbaijan. Yes. I have never heard of this, but I just wanted to share it with you. Here we see other burial types. I wanted to share them with you. So they were situated in hooker position, in a sitting position. Oh yeah, so this was the case. I think this was the case in Poland. Very, very cruel, very brutal. There were 3 families. I'm going to summarize it for you. And in these 3 families, skull fractures were present, and families were buried in mass graves. So we see them here. No, it was not Poland, I'm sorry. So this was Sweden, and the woman actually says here about this culture. It was actually in North Scandinavia that she made this kind of research and analysis, and she said that the deeper you dig, the dirtier it gets. So here, as you see, depicted 2 people who are fighting and one killing the other, most probably. So this was actually cultural violence, structural violence, and direct violence. Yes, violence types. And then we have corded ware again. So this was corded ware. I'm skipping these because I'm mostly interested in steppe culture. So here, this was interesting about the man. He introduced the houses that were actually down from the ground, very, very, you see here, so deep. Yes, and the style of the houses was like this. And there were some burials here, found here. Very, very few burials, but I think they were from the bell beaker. No, from the battle. No, from the battle axe, bell beaker, corded ware. I think it was corded ware. Corded ware. So this was the burial. Here, like this. And here you have actually the very, very interesting. He gives here this part, and it might have happened like this, he says. Well, this can be, of course, discussed, how they actually affected each other. So here we have actually the core Yamnaya. But it says here, this was, I can't read it. So here it goes to the Sintashta part, Andronova Sintashta, which is considered ancient Turkish culture. The Andronova people also are the continuation of this ancient Turkish culture. Here we have the Yamnaya people coming from the east towards this part. So here there is the center, which must be Hungary. And they, of course, they spread it to here. Or it might have been here somewhere. Here somewhere. So as you see, the Yamnaya, I mean, I don't want to call it Yamnaya. The steppe people, the first arrivals of the steppe, they affected the culture of Europe. That's the truth. And this gentleman, he actually analyzed the burials in the Alps. So there were not many burials because most probably the Alps washed away the glaciers, and some burials were very in bad condition. I'm going to show them to you. Okay. What I wanted to show you here is, look at this name. This is in Switzerland. And what do you read there? Trento Alto Adige. Where do you find the Adige? Aren't they in the Caucasus? So this reminds you, or so let's say this shows you a rich culture, that the places where people went, they gave the names of their previous locations. So here there are the burials dating from, no, not the burials. It says here prehistoric settlements in the Mediterranean, but the burials, they are, wait a minute, they are, yeah, so one of them was like this. It was found in Switzerland, Italy, and France, so they had this style of burial. No, wait a minute. I wonder where that is. I mean, there was a burial. I wanted to show you the name in Zurich. Now here's Zurich, actually. Okay, read this. How do you read it? Utokai. So, what is Utokai? What does it sound like? It sounds Turkish. So this is an ancient Turkish name. What does it have to do in Zurich? Switzerland, Zurich, Hungary, the Balkans, Romania, parts of Thrace, of course, the Caucasus, Samara, everything, the Urals. So it was Proto-Turkic. It was most probably the Tatars, the ancient, the forefathers of the Scythians gave them these names. Utokai. Yes, here we have the grave, which was washed away partly. It is very badly preserved. Most probably, I think it was because of the glaciers that washed partly away the skeleton. Here we see another one. So it has two burial phases, it says 3400 BC to 2400 BC. So these are called dolmens. And there are other burials here which were shown. So which one was interesting was that there were 3 found in one burial, in one grave. See how they were placed side by side. Very, very effective. So there were 5 males, 4 females, 2 juveniles and 1 infant. And the orientations were northeast and southwest. 12 individuals in a crouched position. Very, very effective. Here we see the DNA again. Mainly they have 3 components, which is, okay, so this shows not the DNA, I'm sorry, this shows the sites, which shows the groups here. The mixed sites were of Yamnaya Samara, and the sites before 2700 were Anatolia, Neolithic, etc. So I'm passing this part. I wanted to show you this part. So this was a kind of burial style in Switzerland. Now pay attention to the name. What does it say here? Where is the place? Kam. Now what does Kam mean in Turkish? Kam means shaman, a shaman. So I'm pretty sure that before today's civilians were formed in Europe, there was most probably an ancient Uralic, Siberian, Altaic culture which consisted of ancient Turks, ancient Uralics, ancient Hungarians, ancient Siberians, ancient Russians, and most probably, mainly it was dominated by ancient Turks, because these are all old Turkish names. Come. I want to raise awareness because of this. So this gentleman here, he made a very interesting speech about the roots of the bell beaker culture, and he thinks that the bell beaker culture was first introduced in Spain. So how did it come to Spain, the bell beaker culture? And it spread from Spain to all over Europe. Well, it makes me think of Africa, Northern Africa. Most probably it was spread from Northern Africa to Europe via Gibraltar. And maybe, I'm not sure, this is only an idea, maybe the bell beaker culture had a certain Indo-European language which spread to Europe, because if it was a Semitic language ranging the sentence structure like subject, verb, object, it must have spread from Africa, from that part of Africa to Europe. That's what I think. It could be that maybe language was also spread from there to Iberia. Why do Europeans seek their language in Central Asia? I don't understand. Why do they think that parts of Siberia was their homeland, was the language of their homeland? It's so, actually, it doesn't make sense. It is so illogical, because the sentence structure doesn't fit. See, Hungary has an agglutinative language, Turkish also. Many parts of the Urals have an agglutinative language. The Hittites used an agglutinative language, even though the words were Indo-European, yes. But that was mostly the effect of the people who came to Anatolia. And most probably it was because of the incoming population to Anatolia that changed the vocabulary, but the structure remained the same. So think of Sumerian. Now comes actually the language part, which I wanted to tell you. And this is the moment. Think of Sumerian. Sumerian, according to Jules Oppert, was a Casto-Scythian language. Now, what does Casto-Scythian mean? It is actually the forefather of Scythian. It is the ancient language that was spoken in the Urals. That's what he claims. And I'm sure he was right. And it was accepted by Europe, the Westerners. It was accepted by the scholars in those times. And later, what happened to this theory? So this lets me think that something fishy is going on. Why didn't they continue to support his theory? It was a Uralic language. Yamnaya, or the so-called steppe people, spoke a Uralic language. You can see this from Hungary. Hungary is the only remnants of this, let's say, it is the only remnants that shows that this culture still exists. And Turkish is the only remnants that it was an agglutinative language that was spoken all over Asia, including the steppe people, because the Urals, Siberia, parts of Asia, they all spoke a Uralic language, which most probably contained words from, most probably, that's what I think, most probably Proto-Hungarian, all kinds of proto-languages, all kinds of proto-vocabulary that existed in those areas, Siberia. And how did it all affect that region? So if you look at Persian has an agglutinative language. If you look at which other languages speak an agglutinative language? So if you look at other parts of Asia, they mostly speak agglutinative languages, subject, object, verb, subject, object, verb. Japan has subject, object, verb. I'm not sure about China, but I think they also speak subject, object, verb, but I'm not sure about that. So where does it change? It changes when so-called Castro-Scythian comes to Mesopotamia. So it reaches Mesopotamia, and in Mesopotamia, because of the Semitic languages, because of that effect, some prefixes are added to the language. So the structure the structure changes, and most probably the Indians, they also add a certain change to the structure as well, because it influences Sanskrit. So Sanskrit and Sumerian, they are actually a fusion of the Uralic languages. So it all started in Samara, in Russia, Samara, with an agglutinative language. It spread to Hungary. The oldest remnants of this proto-language was Hungarian, Old Hungarian, which mixed with Proto-Turkish. Most probably, this is because we have common words in both Hungarian and Turkish. And then it went either from Central Asia or from the Caucasus to Mesopotamia. And that's why we have Hungarian words and Turkish words in Sumerian. That's the reason why we both have Sumerian words and Turkish words. So this actually solves the language problem here, because in the very beginning, steppe people, the Yamna culture, or let's say the ones that came from the east, they spoke that language. So first, not Indo-European was spoken, no, vice versa. It later came to the effect of a Semitic language or Semitic languages or the Indian language, only later. So how can you explain the vocabulary that is in Sumerian? How can you explain the Turkish vocabulary that is found in Sumerian? How can you explain the Hungarian vocabulary that is found in Sumerian? This is the reason why Samara this is the reason why I strongly believe and I claim that the ancient language of Hungarian and both Turkish and Hungarian, Proto-Turkish and Hungarian, is much older than it is claimed. It is much older, and it shares older features than it is claimed. At least 5,000 years before Christ. And when it came to Mesopotamia, I made a research on Sumerian, and it says it was about 3000 BC when the language was formed. Yes, because it reached about 1,000 years later the Mesopotamian region, where it mixed with the Semitic languages, where it mixed with the Indian vocabulary, where it also got Arab influences. You see what I mean? This solves the language problem. That's why this region spoke an agglutinative language. Okay, later it spread all over Anatolia. The Hittite language was formed later. Not the language, the vocabulary that was adopted by the Hittites was formed later, because Indian influences, you see there, Semitic influences were in Sumerian, and most probably Indians are a mixture of the locals and Arab people, Semitic languages, because they have the same structure, subject, verb, object. And also, they added suffixes. They added prefixes to the language. That's a form of Semitic influence in Sumerian. So yes, Sumerian can be considered a Proto-Turkic language, but I would rather name it Castoscythian, as Jules Oppert claimed. And before that, I wish we had a certain proof of that language, that it spread from Samara, from Russia, Samara. I wish we had a common language of this, where we can prove that Hungarian and Turkish share the roots from 5000 BC at least. So I wish certain tablets were found, or that solved this puzzle. Yes, and later, the steppe people, or the Scythians, or some parts of Asia, only later they started to speak. No, not some parts of Asia. Let me put it this way. They were affected definitely by Indo-European later on. And so it spread all over Europe. Most probably because of North Africa. Maybe they had a similar language, like Semitic language, which spread to a common language, which spread to Spain. And another fact that it was influenced from the Indians. But how did it get to India? I don't know. That's something I can't solve. But definitely there was an effect on our language, and you see lots of Turkish words in Indian as well. So here I think Indian took Turkish words as well, because in Sanskrit some common words are very similar to Turkish. Yes, so I think they took also common words from Proto-Turkish as well. Yes, that solves the language question. I think I stopped the first part here, or I'm not sure. Shall I continue? Maybe I should continue. I'm actually skipping the bell beaker phenomenon, but the only thing is I want to touch on this. So here, this gentleman, I forgot his name, he asks what is behind the bell beakers. So these ancient rituals, these are also customs that the Scythians used. They buried their women like this, with spears and with their weaponry behind the woman, and buried like this. And the types here, I mean, the phenotypes. You see, this gentleman is most probably drinking alcohol. And he reminds me of Scythians who drink kumus. It's a Turkish alcoholic drink made from horse milk, fermented horse milk. So the ancient Scythians had traditions like the Turks, the ancient Turks. Today, we know of blood brotherhood, that we call it kan kardeşliği. So we are actually reviving our traditions. We are continuing our traditions, which we consider, say, for example, which is found in the burials, the drinks, the customs and traditions. We haven't changed them. Not much has changed. I still remember in my childhood we talked about blood brotherhood, and I remember two of my friends. They cut some of their with a needle, I think it was, or with a knife. They cut their skin, and they mixed their blood, because so it was very strange for me, because I said, what are you doing? I mean, things like that. And they said, now we are blood sisters, so that's blood brotherhood. Kan kardeş olduk, they said, right? So this is an ancient tradition that I experienced in my childhood. I mean, I think I got blood brothers or blood sister with Hatice. I'm not sure, but I think it was Hatice, right? So we picked a needle, and blood came out, and we mixed our bloods. So it was very, very strange. It was a strange feeling for me. And so this is the second tradition that I definitely share with the ancient Scythians. Yes. So, the first is the language, which is now my proof. The second is the blood brotherhood. The third is the burial customs, which we still practice. So lots of things are practiced today. So my question is, if the steppe people spoke an Indo-European language, why don't you continue their customs? Isn't this strange? There must be something that makes the continuation of it. You claim that you were the descendants of the steppe people, that you have a certain blood from them, but why don't you continue their customs then? Because you didn't want to mix with them. That was the real reason. Look at the cultures in the Americas. Look at North America, South America. Look at Anatolia. Look at Central Asia, Eastern Asia. Look at the Balkans. Look at Eastern Europe. The problem with the Western world is that they don't really want to mix with those traditions, with those ancient traditions. You actually discriminate these cultures. You don't want to interfere with your heart in these rituals, in these customs. Otherwise, you would have continued them. And then you claim that they spoke your language, or you claim many things that actually weren't your own. Why do you steal our culture? Why can't you say, yes, we took it from these and these people. Yes, these and these people were the founders of yogurt. These and these people were the descendants of these and these people. And we are so glad that we have a little bit of it. Why can't you say this? Yes, let me turn to the lecture again. So here we have a mass grave. This was a family, most probably, and they were slaughtered. And this was in Poland. Yes, and these axes that you see here, they were not very good for fighting. So people used them for cutting trees and uprooting trees, etc. But if you look at the family, I mean, why were they killed and put into the grave like this? A whole family. And these most probably were potteries. So this, I think, was not from the steppe period. This must have been from the corded ware period. Eulau. So the words ending with au can be also found in Kazakhstan and Mongolia. They end with au in Kazakhstan, most probably because of a common root. Yes, and I found this funny because the ancient steppe people didn't look like this, but this. Yeah, so they were buried like this, sometimes like this. Very effective graves. Yes, yes. So this here was the Beaker people. Yes. Another interesting thing was that this was the genome of Britain. So the red thing is R1b. So Britain was replaced by R1b. God. And the blue ones were the Y2A chromosomes. So Y chromosome I2A was replaced by R1b. God. And this was, of course, in the Bronze Age, in the Copper Age. And here we have Neolithic. I'm so sorry about that. Oh, God. So this was the Neolithic and the Beaker period. Yes. Okay, now I understand. It was in Eulau. It was in Eulau. So here another mass killing. Actually, there are lots of sites in Germany where there were some Neanderthal families killing other Neanderthal families, which was found out. I remember one man was digging in his garden and he found skulls, etc., and bones, and then they came and they analyzed them and they found out that it was an ancient Neanderthal site where one group of Neanderthals killed the other, and they even practiced cannibalism there. Yes, Neanderthal was a cannibalist. Very brutal, very brutal. So here we have the haplogroups of the individual. So the green ones were males with H1O. And the orange one was K1A, the blue one was T2B, this one, the baby, was HV60, but the whole family, I mean, with females and males, God. And pink ones was J1, and the white one here, one person was H27. For what reason was this family or this community killed? Yes, and here we have the Yamna samples. I don't want to say Yamna, they were actually steppe people. Here you see actually a Caucasian type. She very much looks Caucasian with a white skin and dark hair. And here we have the Yamna people. They very much look like Uralists. So from the Urals and maybe a little bit Nordic. But they don't have blonde hair, actually. They have white skin, but they have darker hair. So very much Uralists, I would say. Yes, of course, not like this type. Yes. Now, this is David Reich's paper. He actually was the first one to mention about the Caucasus and the Caucasus effect, but he skipped it too fast. And here are some samples of the steppe people. The first steppe people, they came in huge numbers. And the Dnipro, I think, is in Hungary. Volga, Dnipro, I think, is in Hungary. And here we have Caucasus samples. So here we see, actually, okay, they claim that Proto-Indo-European started in Akhnashen, most probably started in Akhnashen, where there can be another possibility that out of here, from the Caucasus Mountains, these languages split. So of course it can be another possibility that Proto-Indo-European arrived from here. So here there are the DNAs of certain places. The core Yamnaya again in red. Here you see Igren, Volgograd Yamnaya. So these are all core types. The core type here we have, you see here, so widespread. It is all in Siberia, what you see here. Bugor, Siesheye, Samara, Yamnaya, Lebyazhinka, Chelyabinsk. All over Russia. I mean, Russia was full of Tatars. And here we have, again, Mayaki. Mayaki sounds very much American Indian to me. Most probably there were also Central or East Asians there. And here we have, of course, other core Yamnaya, all spread here, all over the place. Sharak Halsun sounds very much Turkish and from the Black Sea region. Yes. The other parts, they are not that important here. The most important thing is about the Yamnaya, especially this part here. This part is, I think, the birthplace here. And as I have the map here, I can show you. So here was the birthplace of the Uralic, Hungarian, Proto-Turkish family, and from here towards either the Caucasus or from here Central Asia, it went to the Fertile Crescent, but unfortunately we cannot see that map here. Another possibility is that it came from here, and the Proto-Indo-European effect could have started from here, that it was affected in this place. I'm not sure. Not that early. That's what I think. Maybe later. First I think. But I have to have a map here. First, I think from the Urals, the language spread here from Central Asia, because all this is Turkic land. All these Central Asia, Eastern Asia parts, especially Central Asia parts, they speak Turkic languages, dialects of Turkish languages. And when you go to the Fertile Crescent, you see the effect of suffixes added. So an Akkadian effect, they say, or a Semitic effect, I call it. And there in India, there is, of course, again, a kind of Indian effect, Sanskrit effect, because also there are similar words found from Turkish. So you have Sumerian here, Sanskrit here, and then from there Proto-Indo-European slowly starts its effect here. From India, slowly the language is assimilated into Proto-Indo-European. The Uralic language, a mixture of Hungarian, Proto-Hungarian and Proto-Turkic, gets assimilated here in this area, in India and in the Fertile Crescent, again, where it becomes a kind of Indo-European language here with the Hittites. Actually, the Hittites are a mixture of most probably Turkish, Indian, Semitic people, and it affects the language here. So this is actually the going out of here. So this is actually the spreading of, or most probably not from this area, because this is a mixture of all the languages here, but most probably it affected firstly Greece, the Hittite, and here Greece, Indo-European, and from here most probably Spain, etc. If you, of course, if you have a certain effect from North Africa, I'm not sure, but Spain is considered to have the oldest Indo-European, I think, words. So there must be a kind of African effect there. I'm not sure. And most probably here, in this area, the Greeks, or the Proto-Greeks, they most probably developed sailing, and because of their sailing, they most probably spread the Indo-European languages to the places where it is now spoken. That's my claim. But I'm happy that David Reich finally mentions the Caucasus part, because it was mostly forgotten by the other speakers. They didn't even mention it. Yeah, he mentioned it, yes, but it was too short. For me, it was too short. And you see, Agnashin is here, actually. It is very close to where is it? Is it in the Black Sea region? No, it is in the east. It is in the east of Turkey. Another thing what I want to show you is the names again. I mostly focus on the names because I deal with languages, and I see the connection. Here you see, for example, we have Von Yuchka. There was one name which was it here? No, Sukaya. I think it was Sukaya that I wanted to. The names with ending Aya or Ya, they are. I think that they are a mixture of Uralic and Altaic. Kumsai here. This is what I wanted to focus on. So here we have a Turkish name. This is Kumsai, Turkish name. So the ones, the endings with Sai or I, they are of Turkish origin. Yes. So I will teach you Turkish here. Another thing. Some names here again. For example, Leş is a Turkish name. Kumsay again. So Kumsay is in Kazakhstan, right? It's a Turkish name. Barçın, for example. Yeah, so it's in Turkey, actually. So I have found something Turkish. Şarak Halsun. Now, Halsun and Şarak, especially Şarak, words ending with ak or rak, or they can be Turkish, or a kind of Turkish form. Yes. And ova is actually oba in Turkish. So you know the endings with b changed to v. So b, v, oba means actually house, home. So Afontova can have actually a mixture of Turkish and Russian here, right? So here you see the Turkish and Russian influence here, which most probably can be seen here in Maykop as well, Şarak Halsun as well, and words like this. Right. Kama, for example, is another word. It sounds very much Turkish. David Reich actually explains the clines very well. So this was a Volga cline and Dnipro cline, which he explained here. And here there is the influence of the DNA. Yes, here again we have the same regions. And there was another cline added. That was very interesting, because he said the Dnipro cline consists of Ukraine hunter-gatherers and the Seredny Stich. So the Seredny Stich is important, I think, because I don't remember, but it was important. The Volga cline is also important, but this cline is, I think, richer, and it includes the core Yamnaya. I think that's why. So Seredny Stich includes the core Yamnaya. And here actually he mentions another cline. I think that was the Caucasus Lower Volga cline here. So I'm very thankful that he mentioned this, at least, that these three, they intersect with each other and they form the core Yamnaya, very close to the core Yamnaya, actually. And you know that in the Caucasus there are so many languages spoken, including Turkish, Azerbaijan Turkish. So many languages spoken. Yes. So this is very actually factual when I say, for example, the cline through migrants in all directions. Yes. I actually disagree with him because he said here in the Caucasus Mountains, in this area where we have the Caucasus here, there was a very rich community here who interacted with this community here, but they didn't share certain haplogroups, or they didn't interact with each other, they didn't marry, etc. I actually don't think that this was the case, because Anatolia is a melting pot of cultures. I think it's one of the rare regions in the world where you find all kinds of cultures and all kinds of interactions. Marriages take place, and cultures meet. Cultures they merge into each other. They form new kinds of cultures, mixed cultures, and it is actually a fusion of cultures. So I disagree with him in that point, that here in the Caucasus there was no gene flow. So actually this is how he explains it. So that we have certain waves here from actually down the Crimea. Here there are lots of Tatars. And I'm sure that those times, 5,000 years ago, there were loads of Tatars here who spread in all directions. And the ones that were the Tatars found the yogurt. They spoke a Uralic language. They spoke most probably a mixture of Proto-Turkish and Proto-Hungarian, including some Roman vocabulary within, but they had an agglutinative structure. So most probably this is also another possibility how the waves spread here from, okay, they call it Yamnaya, I call it the first step arrivers. What I can add here about the languages is maybe that Russian was under the effect of an Indo-European language, but I don't know where they were affected from. Maybe from the Greek? Maybe it was the Greek, because the Greek, they had lots of colonies. Where is it? The Greeks, they had lots of colonies here. And they had lots of contact with the Russians. So if you consider the Russians to be also in the steppe community, then of course the Russian language must have been under the effect of the Greek language, because they share the same Cyrillic alphabet. So most probably these two communities, they went into contact so often that the Greeks spread their Indo-European language to the Russians, and Russian now speaks a mixture of Indo-European, but lots of Turkish words in it, lots of Hungarian words in it, lots of German words in it, and a mixture of these kinds of things. So I think most probably the Greeks were the first colonists who spread the Proto-Indo-European language. So they first introduced it to the Russians, who then later introduced it to other Indo-European communities. Or maybe the Greeks were the ones who spread Indo-European to all the other neighbors there in that region. So, and the rest was a kind of form of Proto-Turkish. So mostly the Russians, they most probably had the power in the steppe, and maybe they were the leaders later on. So they took the advantage of changing the language maybe into Proto-European. Yeah, that's the most logical thing that I can think of, because in the very beginning it wasn't like that. Most probably it wasn't like that. Because otherwise there would be no Turkish vocabulary, there would be no Hungarian vocabulary in Sumerian and in in the Russian language itself. So Russian has lots of Turkish words, Hungarian has lots of Turkish words, Sumerian, as I said, has lots of Turkish words and Hungarian words. So this can be the only solution. And also Sanskrit has a kind of flair of Turkish similarity in the vocabulary that it has. So you see the influence of Turkish there, Old Turkish, Proto-Turkish. I also do not agree with the family trees. The family trees are a total mixture. They only blur the minds. And I also don't agree with the fact that you call a community Proto-Indo-European. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Call them by their regions, but don't make all the world Proto-Indo-European. The chronology was like the way I said. That's what I think. From the Urals to India, to the colonists. So most probably the colony was the colonies that later, I mean Scythian, which was Skutai actually. Skutai is a Turkish word. And the Scythians actually were pronounced Skutai. So they spoke Proto-Turkish for most probably 4,000, 5,000 years before they adopted later the most probably the Russian language. I don't say Proto-Indo-European, I say Russian, because they got under the dominance of the Russians. But first it was most probably the Tatars and the Turks and the Magyars and the Hungarians that the Slavs and all the Proto-Russians were yes, they were grouped. So I'm skipping all this because I have my own idea of how the languages spread there. I most definitely think that my theory is more logical, and the Turks, the Uralists most probably think like me as well. Why I don't agree with the Indo-Europeanists is the reason because, first of all, they don't know Turkish. And when they look at languages, it is not their fault because they cannot tell which word is Turkish and which word sounds Turkish. But as I know Turkish, English, German, and a little bit of Italian, I can tell in which word there is a smell like Turkish? Which word has a Turkish root? I can smell it. I mean, actually, I can feel it. I don't smell it. So this part is also important, I think, here, where David Reich actually situates the Priyamnaya here. So actually, I don't like the term, as I said, Priyamnaya. So this is the steppe area here. Here is Ukraine. Here is the Crimea. Kurum, we say in Turkish. And here there is Russia, etc., and the Urals, right? And here you see how it all spread. This is so beautiful. Here you see Russia, Central Asia, East Asia. Wow, wow. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It's ranging from Europe to all over Asia. All over Asia. That's amazing. Now, of course, we have David Anthony. I am skipping this with languages because, as I said, this all doesn't make sense to me. The splitting of the languages has to be completely redone. It has to be reconstructed again, and there have to be Turkish linguists as well, Hungarians, Turks. They have to work together and defend their region, defend their Uralic Altaic family. I mean, I actually sometimes I disagree with the Hungarians when they say Turks, they don't speak a Uralic family. They must collaborate with us. We must protect them. They must protect us, because otherwise we will be assimilated in the European family kind of stuff. Because our culture is the only remnants. They have the only Uralic language in Europe. I mean, Finland, of course, Finland has a Uralic stem too, but Hungary has the only connection with the Turks that dates them back to the Western Turks. So it is the same for Turkey. Turkish is the only area that is spoken now in the region, because we have Semitic influences, we have Indian influences in our language, and it will only get worse in the future. And it's the same for Hungary, because in that area they are surrounded with Indo-European families. They will get assimilated, and we will get assimilated. So we have to support each other. We cannot say we are not from the Uralic family, or you are not from the Uralic family. We have to say we share the same culture, a similar culture, and the same language family in Siberia. We have to say that, because otherwise we will get assimilated, as I say. So there will be no culture of us in the future, both for Hungary and for Turks. both for the Hungarians and for the Turks, because we are of the same origin. We have the same culture. That goes back to at least 5,000 years, all together with the language, all together with the culture. And it would be very sad to lose that in the future. There will be no diversity. There will be no cultural diversity. There will be no language diversity. It is not good. This doesn't lead us to a good way. Assimilation of cultures is not a good thing, especially when you are told that this culture doesn't belong to you, or that this culture belongs to you, though they don't know a thing about that culture, or they don't know even the language. Claiming one thing is easy. In order to claim it, you have to know the language, you have to know the culture, and you have to live the culture. How can you claim it if you don't live the culture, and if you don't speak the language? You cannot claim it. But I can claim it because I live the culture, I experience it, I live the culture, I speak the languages. I can claim it. And I research a lot. I know the history as well. And about the map. So, everything is Iranian here. Everything is Indo-European. I mean, where is the Uralic language? I mean, where is the agglutinative language? I mean, all these parts until from here, so it actually starts from Hungary. In Hungary, we have an agglutinative language. In Anatolia, I mean Turkish. And then parts of Iran are Turkish-speaking countries, are Turkish-speaking parts. We have Turks living in Iran. Millions of Turks are living in Iran. And all this part, all this belt here, I don't know if you call it, I think it's belt. Here, this thick belt is spoken Turkish dialects all around here in this area. So this is all Turkish. You cannot claim it is Iranian. And parts of India still speak a kind of Turkish dialect here. So we have also here some parts of Mongolia and Central Asia that are Turkic speaking countries. So you cannot call this Iranian. I mean, this is assimilation. We have to be very careful when we classify. Yes. So, and also there are some parts in Europe, Basque, for example, which is an agglutinative language. And also there are parts of one or two languages that speak an agglutinative language. So they have all to do with Scythian, Proto-Scythian, and the agglutinative language. So here, what I want to say, actually, I wanted to say something. So this map is wrong. The map is wrong because I think it was more an effect. The dominance was more Uralic in the past. Now it is Indo-European, not in the past. It is vice versa. And what I don't agree with is how David Anthony puts the wheat words about agriculture in or let's say how he interferes agricultural terminology with Proto-Indo-European, and he combines them with these words. But actually they were more in connection with Uralic vocabulary. How did Turkish come into being? It didn't form out of nowhere. We have common words with Hungarians. We have common words in Hungary. We have common words with Hungarian. Sorry. Which mostly fits Turkish. So there must have been a contact thousands of years ago with the Hungarians, because we have these common words. You cannot oversee this. This is discrimination of cultures. It is the killing of cultures. If you were to compare Proto-Hungarian and Proto-Turkic and most probably the Samara band, the Samara region, I would accept it. I would say, okay, it was like this, yes. If there was no Sumerian, I wouldn't care. If there was no Sanskrit, I wouldn't care. If there was no Hungarian, I wouldn't care. But there are these languages and they have common words. There are hundreds of words, It is not one, it is not two. And what are you doing? You are pushing us to Mongolia, where we only have 25 common words. We have hundreds of words common with Indo-European. We have mostly words with Sumerian, with Sanskrit, even with Greek, common words with Greek, common words with Armenian. They took these words from us. Greek took the words from us. Why don't you compare these? And it was not formed later. I liked the idea that David Anthony described this horse-riding man and how he was buried like this. So this was very effective. So this is Romania, Bulgaria, and places like that. What I noticed in the papers was, look at the places where these were found, the horse-riding men. The first horse-riding men, they were found in Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria. Why there? Because Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania has much influence from Turks. It has had much influence in history from the Turks. So from this conference, I can understand that the history goes far back to what I expected. I thought it went back to maybe at least 1,000 years BC. But with this conference, I understand that with the first horse riders, which are claimed to have ridden horses 3000 BC or 4000 BC, it brings the culture even closer to, it brings my culture, it brings the Turkish culture, it brings the Siberian, it brings the Tatar culture closer to Bulgaria, Romania, and Hungary. Now, about pastoralism. Somebody mentioned, I'm not sure who it was, that they made cheese and that they made yogurt. The Indo-Europeans made yogurt. Come on. Ever since my childhood, I was told that the only thing that Turks invented was yogurt. So it was something like, kind of not discrimination, but they made fun of us. So it was actually mocking the Turks because the only invention that we found was yogurt. Okay, now Greeks claim to have found yogurt. Greek yogurt, they call it. So why are you stealing the culture? It is, I think, an Indo-European character to steal cultures. But anyway, I don't want to generalize. So if I think of pastoralism, and if I think of the people who found yogurt, they were the Turks. The Turks found yogurt. And most probably it was the steppe people who found these kinds of products, dairy products, pastoralism, etc., etc. But they didn't speak Proto-Indo-European language because it was the Turks, it was the Proto-Turks, together with the Proto-Hungarians, together with the most probably the Uralists. If you claim that yogurt was that old or cheese was that old, you have to accept the fact that Turkish is that old, and Turks and Hungarians had a certain connection, and the Uralists had a certain connection from those era, thousands of years ago, at least 4,000, 5,000 years ago. Pastoralism, okay. Yes, so this was the last part. This was about the pandemic that occurred and the plague. I'm skipping Christian Christensen's paper, but it was interesting, of course. So here we have Gökheim in Sweden. Yes. Okay, that's it actually. I want to conclude my, let's say, my long video about this. So this was actually a seminar or a conference where I learned lots of things. It took me more. I mean, I realized that we have a longer culture. We have a deeper culture with the Hungarians than previously thought. And we have a deep culture, we have a long-lasting culture, which goes back to at least 5,000 years. A common culture, a common ancestry, most probably, where we came together again and again. So here in this page, as I said, I researched Sumer, which I found out it was about 3000 BC. And here there is a paper about Semitic and Indo-European, because I think they are connected. Semitic and Indo-European share the same or similar features. And that's what I think. And I'm doing research on this. I want to prove that Semitic and Indo-European actually are killing the agglutinative languages because they are older than Semitic languages and Indo-European languages. Yes, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you all for listening. And hopefully until another video. Bye.